That iconic black and red van wasn't actually black, it sometimes wasn't even a GMC, and the crew used bleach to fake its burnouts. From secret grip tape on the roof to promotional vans that were complete imposters, the A-Team's legendary Vandura hides a treasure trove of bizarre production secrets that even die-hard fans don't know. Here are 15 weird facts you didn't know about the A-Team's GMC Vandura van. Fact 1. The van wasn't actually black. If you grew up watching the A-Team, you probably remember that iconic van as being completely black with a red stripe and some red accents. But here's the thing, it was never actually all black. The van featured a distinctive two-tone paint job that most viewers either didn't notice or have completely forgotten about over the years. The top portion of the van was painted in a metallic charcoal gray color, while the bottom half was true black, with the famous red stripe serving as the dividing line between these two sections. This color scheme gave the van more visual dimension on camera and helped it stand out during action sequences. But the gray was subtle enough that it didn't register in many people's memories, especially when watching on the smaller television screens that were common in the 1980s. The metallic finish on the gray portion would catch light differently depending on the scene, sometimes appearing almost silver in bright outdoor shots and nearly black in darker sequences. This inconsistency in how the gray appeared under different lighting conditions probably contributed to the widespread belief that the van was solid black. Over the decades since the show ended, this misremembering has become so widespread that many fans are genuinely surprised when they go back and watch old episodes in high definition, suddenly noticing the gray top section they'd somehow overlooked for years. The two-tone design was actually a fairly common factory option on GMC Vanduras during that era, but the A-Team's specific combination of charcoal gray, black, and that bold red stripe created such an iconic look that it became permanently etched in pop culture history, even if people can't quite remember the colors correctly. Fact 2. Bleach created the iconic burnouts. One of the most memorable images from the A-Team was watching Bachelor of Arts Baracus peel out in that van, leaving behind clouds of white tire smoke as he tore away from bad guys or made a dramatic entrance. Those spectacular burnouts became a signature element of the show's action sequences, happening in nearly every episode. But there was a secret behind those impressive displays of automotive power. The van itself wasn't actually capable of producing them naturally. The 1983 GMC Vandura came equipped with a relatively modest V8 engine that simply didn't have enough horsepower or torque to break the rear tires loose on dry pavement, especially when loaded down with camera equipment, actors, and all the custom interior modifications the show's van featured. So the crew came up with an ingenious solution that's now a well-known trick in Hollywood. They sprayed household bleach directly onto the pavement and onto the rear tires before filming burnout scenes. The bleach dramatically reduced the friction between the rubber and the road surface, allowing the tires to spin freely and generate massive amounts of smoke even with the van's limited power. A crew member would literally walk up with a spray bottle or bucket of bleach just before the director called action, quickly dousing the area where the rear wheels sat, and sometimes even pouring it directly onto the tire treads. The chemical reaction between the bleach and the hot rubber produced particularly thick white smoke that looked fantastic on camera. This technique was so effective that it allowed the production to get consistent, dramatic burnout shots take after take without needing a high-performance engine or risking damage to the transmission from repeated hard launches. Fact 3. Promotional vans were Chevy imposters. When the A-Team became a massive hit in the mid-1980s, NBC and Universal Studios needed to capitalize on the show's popularity by sending replica vans to promotional events, fan conventions, shopping mall appearances, and various marketing opportunities across the country. The problem was that the actual production vans were too valuable and too busy being used for filming to send out on tour. So, the studio commissioned 6 promotional vans specifically for public appearances and meet and greets with fans. Here's where things get weird. None of these promotional vans were actually GMC Vanduras at all. Instead, the studio purchased 1979 Chevrolet vans, which had a similar body style but were actually from a completely different model year and manufacturer than the iconic vehicle from the show. The promotional team then painted these Chevy vans to match the color scheme of the real thing and added GMC badges to the front grille and other locations to complete the disguise. For most fans who encountered these vans at events, the deception was completely convincing, especially since most people weren't automotive experts who could spot the subtle differences in body lines, trim details, and proportions between a Chevy and a GMC from that era. The fake GMC badges were probably the boldest part of the fraud, essentially misrepresenting what these vehicles actually were. These imposter vans toured extensively throughout the show's run and for years afterward, taking photos with thousands of fans who believed they were standing next to the real thing. Some of these promotional vans still exist today in private collections, and their owners are usually upfront about their Chevrolet origins, though that doesn't diminish their value as genuine pieces of A-Team merchandising history. Fact 4. 3. M-grip tape covered the roof. If you go back and watch the A-Team episodes carefully, paying close attention to overhead shots and angles that show the top of the van, you'll notice something unusual covering the roof strips of what looks like rough, dark tape arranged in various patterns. That's 3M grip tape, the same industrial non-slip material that's used on loading ramps, stair treads, and other surfaces where people need secure footing. The production crew covered large sections of the van's roof with this tape, specifically to keep stuntmen from slipping off during the many action sequences that required performers to climb on top of the vehicle. Throughout the series, the A-Team's van was frequently involved in scenes where characters would scramble onto the roof while the vehicle was moving, jump from the roof to other surfaces, or even fight bad guys while standing on top of the speeding van. The painted metal roof of a GMC Vandura becomes incredibly slippery when you add any moisture, whether from rain effects, morning dew on location, or even just the residue from dust and dirt, making it genuinely dangerous for stunt performers to maintain their footing. The grip tape solved this problem by providing traction similar to skateboard grip tape or the non-slip pads you'd find in a bathtub. The tape was deliberately applied in strips rather than covering the entire roof, probably to reduce weight and avoid creating too much visual texture that might be distracting in certain shots. In close-up scenes where the tape would be too visible, the crew likely used vans without it or filmed from angles that kept the roof out of frame. This practical safety measure was just one of many behind-the-scenes modifications made to the production vans that most viewers never noticed, but that helped keep the show's stunt performers safe during 4 years of intense action filming. Fact 5. Ford Econolines stood in for stunts. The A-Team's production team didn't rely on just one type of van for all their filming needs. They actually used multiple different vehicles depending on what a particular scene required. For some of the more destructive and explosive stunts, especially those that would completely destroy the vehicle, the crew would secretly substitute a Ford Econoline van instead of using one of their valuable GMC Vanduras. The Ford Econoline was cheaper to acquire and had a similar enough silhouette that with the right paint job and camera angles, viewers couldn't tell the difference when it was flying through the air or exploding in a ball of flames. The production would paint these Econolines black, add red hubcaps or wheel covers to mimic the distinctive look of the GMC, and sometimes even add red stripes in approximately the right places. In some particularly budget-conscious episodes, the crew would use even older Chevrolet vans for stunts, especially for shots that would be filmed from a distance or shown very briefly before the vehicle was destroyed. These substitutions made financial sense because GMC Vanduras, especially ones that had already been customized with the show's specific paint scheme and interior modifications, represented a significant investment that the production didn't want to waste on one-time destruction shots. The differences between these stand-in vehicles and the real GMC were actually pretty noticeable if you knew what to look for. The Ford Econoline had different body lines, a different grille design, and slightly different proportions, but in the heat of an action sequence with quick cuts and explosions happening, most viewers never caught on to the deception. This practice of using cheaper vehicles for destructive stunts was common in television production during that era and helped the A-Team maintain its impressive action sequences without completely destroying their budget. Fact 6. The sunroof kept disappearing. One of the most glaring continuity errors throughout the A-Team's entire run involves the van's sunroof, which seems to exist in a state of quantum uncertainty, appearing and disappearing seemingly at random throughout individual episodes. Some of the production vans were equipped with factory sunroofs while others weren't, and the crew either didn't notice or didn't care enough to maintain consistency when cutting between different vehicles during editing. You can watch scenes where the van clearly has a sunroof in one shot, and then seconds later, in the same sequence, from a different angle or after a quick cut, the roof is completely solid with no sunroof at all. This happened because the production maintained multiple vans in rotation, some for different types of stunts, some for interior shots, and some for regular driving scenes, and these different vehicles didn't all have matching features. The sunroof issue is particularly noticeable because it's such a large and distinctive feature on the roof of the van, creating an obvious visual discontinuity that even casual viewers can spot once they know to look for it. In some episodes, the van will have a sunroof during dialogue scenes filmed on a soundstage, then magically lose it during outdoor action sequences, then gain it back again when the team returns to their warehouse. The problem was probably exacerbated by the fact that sunroof-equipped vans and non-sunroof vans had different structural characteristics that made them better suited for different purposes. A van with a sunroof had a weaker roof structure that might not be ideal for scenes where stuntmen were standing on top, while a solid roof van couldn't be used for scenes where characters needed to pop up through the top. This continuity error has become a favorite detail for fans to point out when watching the series, and it serves as a reminder of how different television production standards were in the 1980s compared to today's high-definition era where every detail is visible and every inconsistency gets noticed. Fact 7. Murdoch's joke. About Bachelor of Arts gold jewelry, the writers of the A-Team loved to poke fun at Bachelor of Arts. Baracus's extensive collection of gold chains, rings, and other jewelry, which became one of the character's most recognizable traits, alongside his mohawk hairstyle and fear of flying. In the episode titled Hot Styles, which aired during the show's run, there's a particularly funny moment where the team's eccentric pilot, Howling Mad Murdoch, makes a joke that perfectly captures the absurdity of just how much gold Mr. T's character wore on a daily basis. According to Murdoch's quip, the van has a tendency to pull to the left side when driving, and the reason for this mechanical quirk is that Bachelor of Arts actually tuned the suspension specifically to compensate for the significant weight of all the gold jewelry he constantly wears on his body. Murdoch goes on to explain that, in order to drive the van straight without this compensating suspension adjustment, Bachelor of Arts would need to wear an equivalent amount of weight on the other side of his body, specifically mentioning chains and bricks, just to balance himself out properly. This joke works on multiple levels, because it not only highlights the ridiculous amount of gold jewelry that Mr. T wore both as Bachelor of Arts and in his personal life, but it also plays into the running gag throughout the series about Bachelor of Arts' obsessive relationship with his van and his mechanical expertise. The idea that someone would actually modify a vehicle's suspension to account for jewelry weight is obviously absurd, which makes it perfect for Murdoch's character, who frequently said outrageous things that walked the line between genuine insight and complete nonsense. This particular joke has stuck with fans over the years because it's such a specific and weird detail that perfectly encapsulates the show's willingness to be self-aware about its own absurdities while still playing things relatively straight. Fact 8. The show recycled action footage constantly. Throughout the A-Team's 5-season run from 1983 to 1987, the production team developed a habit of reusing action footage featuring the van from earlier episodes, cutting these sequences into later episodes to save time and money on filming new stunts. This practice of recycling footage was extremely common in television production during the 1980s, especially for action shows with tight production schedules and limited budgets. But the A-Team took it to remarkable extremes. The same van chase scenes, burnouts, jumps, and crashes would appear multiple times throughout the series, sometimes with slight color correction or different editing to disguise their reuse, but often without any attempt to hide the fact that viewers were watching the exact same footage they'd seen weeks or months earlier. This became particularly noticeable to regular viewers who watched the show religiously and started recognizing specific stunts and sequences that kept popping up in different episodes. The practice reached its peak of absurdity in the show's final episode, where the opening action sequence consisted almost entirely of recycled footage from early seasons, strung together to create what appeared to be a new chase scene, but was actually a greatest hits compilation of van stunts from years past. By the final season, the production was clearly running low on both budget and enthusiasm, and rather than invest in filming new action sequences, they simply raided their archive of existing footage and repurposed it. Some eagle-eyed fans have documented specific stunts that appeared in 3, 4, or even 5 different episodes throughout the series run. The reused footage is especially obvious when you notice that the van's condition changes between shots going from pristine to dented to pristine again, or when background details like landscapes and buildings don't match the episode's supposed location. This recycling of footage was a practical necessity given the show's demanding production schedule, But it also created an unintentional time capsule effect where certain iconic van stunts became permanently embedded in the show's visual language. Fact 9. One van still rots at Universal Studios. For years after the A-Team ended its original run in 1987, at least one of the original production vans sat in a state of gradual decay on the Universal Studios backlot in California, slowly deteriorating in the elements while serving as a photo opportunity for tourists on the studio tram tour. This van became something of a sad roadside attraction, visible from the tram route that takes visitors through the working areas of the studio lot where various props, sets, and vehicles from famous productions are stored. The van sat there with flat tires, its once vibrant paint scheme faded and weathered from years of exposure to the California sun, looking more like an abandoned vehicle than a valuable piece of television history. Tourists would photograph it from the tram, often excited to spot this iconic vehicle from their childhoods, not realizing they were essentially looking at a slowly rotting corpse of what had once been a functioning production vehicle. The van's deterioration was visible in numerous ways. The paint had faded from black and gray to a chalky sun-bleached shadow of its former self. The red stripe and accents had oxidized and lost their vibrancy. The tires were completely deflated and probably cracked, and various trim pieces and accessories had either fallen off or been pilfered by souvenir hunters over the years. Universal Studios seemed content to leave it there as a piece of nostalgia rather than investing in restoration or proper preservation, treating it as just another prop rather than recognizing it as an important artifact from one of the network's most successful action series. The exact fate of this particular van is unclear, as different fans and visitors have reported seeing it in various conditions over the years, and it may have eventually been removed, restored, or completely scrapped. The image of this abandoned van serves as a reminder of how disposable even iconic television props can be once a show ends, and the immediate commercial value diminishes. Fact 10. 8 vans destroyed in 4 years. The A-Team's commitment to practical stunts and real vehicle action came at a significant cost. The production went through approximately 8 different GMC Vanduras during the show's initial 4-year run from 1983 to 1987. This high attrition rate wasn't because the vans were simply wearing out from normal use, but rather because the intense stunt work, particularly the dramatic jumps that became a signature of the show's action sequences, would often render a van completely unusable after just a single take. When you launch a vehicle weighing several thousand pounds through the air, even a relatively short jump of 10 or 15 feet, the impact forces when it lands are absolutely tremendous, far beyond what the frame, suspension, and body of a civilian van were ever designed to handle. The GMC Vandura was built as a work vehicle or family transportation, not as a stunt vehicle, so its frame would often bend or crack upon landing. The suspension components would break or become permanently deformed, and the body panels would crumple in ways that couldn't be easily repaired. In some cases, a particularly hard landing would completely destroy a van's structural integrity, making it unsafe or impossible to drive, even if the crew managed to get it started. The production had to maintain a rotating inventory of vans in various conditions, pristine ones for close-up shots and dialogue scenes, moderately worn ones for regular driving and minor stunts, and sacrificial ones that existed purely to be destroyed in spectacular jumps or crashes. This meant the show's transportation department was constantly on the lookout for suitable GMC Vanduras to purchase, and they probably bought every reasonably priced 1983 model they could find in Southern California. The cost of constantly replacing destroyed vans became a significant line item in the show's budget, but the producers clearly felt that the dramatic impact of real vehicle stunts was worth the expense compared to the alternatives available at the time. Fact 11. The 2010 movie van was fake. When Hollywood finally produced a feature film adaptation of the A-Team in 2010, more than 20 years after the original series ended, fans were excited to see an updated version of the iconic van on the big screen. However, what appeared in the movie wasn't a GMC Vandura at all, and it barely resembled the original vehicle beyond being a black van with some red accents. The filmmakers chose to use a 1994 Chevrolet G20 van as their hero vehicle, which was a completely different make, model, and generation from the GMC that had defined the original series. The Chevy G20 had a much more modern, rounded body style that looked nothing like the boxy, angular lines of the 1980s GMC Vandura that fans knew and loved. To make matters worse from a purist perspective, The movie van featured a completely different paint scheme that didn't faithfully recreate the original's distinctive two-tone color combination and red stripe design. Instead of the subtle gray and black two-tone separated by the red stripe, the movie van had a more generic black paint job with red accents that felt more like a vague homage than an accurate recreation. Perhaps most egregiously, the movie van was equipped with 3 sunroofs instead of the single sunroof that occasionally appeared on the original series vans. These 3 sunroofs gave the vehicle a completely different profile and aesthetic, making it look more like a custom party van than the utilitarian work vehicle that Bachelor of Arts Baracus would have driven. The decision to use a 1990 Chevy instead of finding or building an authentic GMC Vandura replica disappointed many longtime fans who felt the van was as much a character in the story as any of the human team members. The filmmakers likely chose the newer vehicle for practical reasons. It was easier to find, cheaper to maintain, more reliable for the demanding film schedule, and had modern safety features that made stunt work less risky. But these practical considerations didn't make the deviation any less jarring for fans of the original series. Fact 12. License plates changed during chases. Among the many continuity errors that plagued the A-Team throughout its run, one of the most noticeable to detail-oriented viewers is the van's constantly changing license plates, which would sometimes be different on the front and back of the vehicle, and which would inexplicably change multiple times within single episodes or even within individual chase scenes. This inconsistency happened because the production used multiple vans that weren't always outfitted with matching license plates, and the crew either didn't notice or didn't prioritize maintaining this particular detail during filming and editing. You can watch a chase sequence where the van starts with one California license plate number, then after a quick cut to a different angle or a different stunt van, it suddenly has a completely different plate number. Then later in the same scene, it might revert to the original number or display yet another variation. Sometimes the front plate would show one number, while the rear plate showed something completely different, which is particularly noticeable in shots where the van is turning or when the camera captures both ends of the vehicle in the same frame. This plate-switching phenomenon became especially obvious in episodes where the van was featured prominently in multiple scenes, as the license plate might change 4 or 5 times throughout the episode with no narrative explanation. The problem was compounded by the fact that each of the production's multiple vans probably had to be registered with California authorities and given legitimate license plates, meaning there wasn't just one correct plate number that represented the van's fictional registration. The constantly changing plates have become another favorite continuity error for fans to document and joke about, joining the disappearing sunroof as evidence of how little attention was paid to maintaining visual consistency from shot to shot in 1980s television production. In the era before high-definition home video and internet fan communities that could scrutinize every frame, these kinds of errors simply didn't matter much, because most viewers watching on small television screens wouldn't notice or remember specific license plate numbers anyway. Fact 13. Different vans for different stunts. The A-Team's production didn't just maintain multiple identical vans as backups, they actually built or modified specialized versions of the van that were specifically designed and engineered for particular types of stunts, each optimized for different physical challenges. One of the most interesting specialized vans was built with the engine relocated to the middle of the vehicle rather than in its normal front-mounted position. This mid-engine configuration dramatically changed the van's weight distribution, moving the center of gravity closer to the middle of the wheelbase rather than having it biased toward the front. This modification made the van much better suited for jump stunts, because the more balanced weight distribution meant the vehicle was less likely to nosedive when airborne and would land more evenly on all 4 wheels, simultaneously, reducing the chance of the front end crumpling on impact. Another specialized van was modified to make it easier to drive on 2 wheels for those dramatic moments when the van would careen around corners balanced on its driver's side or passenger side tires. This probably involved modifications to the suspension, possibly lowering the center of gravity and stiffening certain components to make the van more stable in this precarious position. Perhaps most amusingly, the production had at least one van that was specifically lightened and modified so that it could be flipped by Bachelor of Arts Baracus using just his bare hands in scenes that demonstrated his superhuman strength. This van was probably gutted of most of its interior components, had much of its heavy mechanical equipment removed or replaced with lighter alternatives, and possibly even had portions of its body panels replaced with lightweight fiberglass or aluminum to reduce the overall weight to something that could actually be manipulated by a strong person with the help of some clever camera angles and leverage points. These specialized vehicles allowed the show to accomplish stunts that would have been impossible or far too dangerous with a stock GMC Vandura, and they represent a level of planning and engineering that most viewers never suspected was happening behind the scenes. Fact 14. Some stunt vans had no engines. In what might be the ultimate example of Hollywood's smoke and mirrors, several of the vans used for specific types of stunts in the A-Team didn't even have engines installed. They were essentially empty shells that looked like the iconic vehicle from the outside but contained no mechanical components whatsoever. These engineless vans were used for scenes where the vehicle didn't actually need to drive under its own power, such as when it was being pushed by other vehicles, towed into position by cables attached to camera trucks, or positioned on a trailer or platform for filming. By removing the engine, transmission, fuel tank, and other heavy mechanical components, these shells were dramatically lighter than a functioning van, which made them easier and safer to maneuver for certain types of shots. A lighter van could be pushed into position by fewer crew members, could be more easily controlled when being towed at speed for chase sequences, and was less dangerous if something went wrong during a stunt because there was no engine that could leak fluids or catch fire. These gutted shells were probably also used for interior dialogue scenes that were filmed on a soundstage, where the van didn't need to actually drive anywhere, it just needed to provide the right background and environment for the actors to deliver their lines. The interior scenes might have the van sitting on a platform with crew members rocking it to simulate movement, while background scenery was either rear projected or, in later seasons, replaced with green screen. Using engineless shells was a practical and cost-effective solution that allowed the production to have multiple vans available without needing to maintain and insure multiple functioning vehicles, and it ensured that the valuable working vans weren't tied up on a soundstage when they might be needed for location filming. This is another one of those behind-the-scenes secrets that completely changes how you view the show once you know about it. Fact 15. The color created a Mandela effect. The A-Team van has become a textbook example of what's known as the Mandela effect, a phenomenon where large groups of people share a false memory of a specific detail, in this case, believing that the van was entirely black when it actually had a two-tone paint scheme with gray on top. This shared false memory has become so widespread that it's regularly cited in discussions about the Mandela effect alongside other famous examples, like people misremembering the Monopoly Man having a monocle or believing that Sinbad starred in a movie called Shazam. Countless fans of the show will adamantly insist, sometimes even arguing passionately, that the van had absolutely no gray coloring anywhere on it and was solid black from top to bottom, except for the red stripe and accents. When shown actual footage or photographs clearly displaying the metallic charcoal gray on the upper portion of the van, many people express genuine shock and disbelief, sometimes even suggesting that the images must be wrong or that their memories are from a different version of the show. The psychological reasons behind this mass misremembering probably have to do with how the human brain processes and stores visual information, particularly when viewing content on small, low-resolution television screens common in the 1980s. The gray was subtle enough, especially in certain lighting conditions and on lower-quality video formats, that brains simplified the color palette down to just black and red for easier storage and recall. Additionally, when people think about or describe the van years later, they tend to emphasize the most striking visual elements, the black body and bold red stripe, while unconsciously discarding the more subtle gray detail as unimportant. The fact that so many people share this identical false memory rather than having varied misrememberings suggests something systematic about how our brains processed and encoded the visual information about this particular vehicle, making it a fascinating case study for psychologists interested in memory formation and collective false memories.